Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Reverse Sweep Show. New month, but still the same podcast for all you cricket fans out there. And this is your host SS, and joining me as ever is my co-host AB. I know AB, you are following the game, India versus England, but otherwise, how's life?
We keep talking about it as time just keeps flying by. It was just feels just yesterday when the new year started and we were recording a podcast around the test team of the next decade. But here we are already mid-Feb, down another 5-6 podcast episodes, and now talking about India versus England series. That time we were following BGT. Now it's India versus England. Soon we'll go into the Champions Trophy, and before we know it, we'll be
The
recording
IPL
another
season.
IPL season, of course. So yeah, time's flying by, and work's been hectic, but we are back here on a Sunday evening, recording a new podcast episode. How about things at your end, SS? What are you up to, and what cricket are you following? Are you following the India versus England series?
Uh, Not much as I would like to, but whenever I get a chance to watch the game or watch the extended highlights, it's always great. Really impressed by Abhishek Sharma in the T20Is and Varun Chakravarti. And in the first ODI, I was really impressed by some of the shots Shreyas Iyer was playing as well. So now with Virat Kohli back today and looking like England will make a decent enough score, it will be a nice chase to follow. Otherwise, I really was into the Australia-Sri Lanka series as well. I thought that it would be a close contest, especially with Sri Lankan spinners and the surfaces. But Steve Smith showed that he's now in a rich vein of form after the century he scored against us. And maybe this is a start of one last purple patch in his career. And maybe he touches the average of 60. That will be intriguing to watch. Today, we felt that now India-England ODI series is there. There have been such great encounters in the past. Uh, Jerseys flying here and there. Big ICC matches between the two nations. But we thought today that we'll go back to something iconic down memory lane, something we remember so well from our childhood. It heralded a new era of ODI cricket for us. And today in Pakistan, there's a new tri-series happening, which doesn't happen so much these days. So we thought we will go back to a tri-series and a tri-series final. So, AB, for the benefit of our listeners, what exactly are we talking about?
Yeah, you gave so many hints, SS. So you dropped so many breadcrumbs along the way. One jersey is flying, Tri Series, iconic moment between India and England. So, yes, we are going back to 2002. We are going back to the NatWest series between India, England, and Sri Lanka. And yes, we are talking about the final. The final where we chased down the highest ODI total back in the day. So, yes, that is what we talk about today. What if India had lost that NatWest series final? How would it have impacted the legacies of individual players? For example, Ganguly, Kaif, Yuvraj, so many of them. And how would that have impacted the evolution of cricket in these two countries, India and England? So, that is the topic for today. And with that, SS, what do you remember of that era? Like, can you set some context for all our listeners and viewers about what the team was going through around that time? What was happening in Indian cricket, in English cricket at that time?
Yep, we had the Desert Storm in 98. It was Sachin's decade. If Sachin played well, we had a chance. Of course, we had Ganguly, we had Dravid, we had a couple of good bowlers, Kumble and Srinath. But we always felt that it was Sachin boom or bust for us. Those were the 90s. We after the Desert Storm, we played the World Cup in 99. It was a disappointing finish. We then went on under Ganguly's captaincy to be fairly inconsistent. We was experimenting a lot with the team after Mongia's departure, experimenting a lot with the keeper slot, losing a lot of tri-series finals, especially in Sharjah, where somehow Pakistan and Sri Lanka, one of the two would come up, Murli or Anwar and Wasim and Wakar, and then we would just be floundering. Uh, so I don't look back at those times with a very loving memory, but at least the turn of the millennium post, uh, I think John Wright came in and young players coming in, there was a sense of excitement that, yeah, this is going to be. And I think we saw a bit in the Champions Trophy in Kenya that happened in 2001, where a certain Yuvraj Singh coming in, we making the final we should have won, and then Chris Gaines decided to come out and win the final against us. But those were at least some positive nature to it. We had, of course, won the big series, test series against Australia at home, even though we lost the ODIs. But there was a sense that something was brewing. On England side, after the 87 World Cup final appearance, they had generally been a very middling ODI team. You would more often than not, whenever India went into an ODI series against England, if it was not being played in England, we were the favorites. And even if it was being played in England, let's say in the latter part of the summer months when the pitches were a bit flat, you had more sunshine, you would think that India, if everyone was fit, we should be winning the game. So India, England, middling teams, especially with Sri Lanka, now the 96 squad was kind of whittling away. You would think India had a decent chance. Uh, and there was this sense of anticipation with the young players. That was the main thing, that now we have turned a corner. There's a sense of anticipation. Maybe we will do well. And and this will herald a new future for us. This is what I would think about Indian cricket. This was this metamorphosis time, essentially. What about you? What do you remember about those couple of years in and around the NatWest final?
So around 1999 was when I started watching cricket and started following the Indian team. As you said, we were more of a middling team. We could have lost a match even to Zimbabwe, Kenya, and definitely not amongst the top 4 or 5 cricketing nations at that point of time. I remember watching so many matches against Pakistan or Sri Lanka, and we were always struggling. And growing up as a young cricket fan, that is where I started getting invested into the cricket team that Indian cricket was. And watching Sachin bat well, we would do well. So, you have these highs and lows that the team was taking all of us through. And that is where I got hooked on to following the team. And when you talk about what was brewing, we also went through a massive transition in post 99 World Cup after all the match fixing scandals, Azharuddin, Jadeja, and the likes going out. A lot of transition going on in the team. And as you said, so many new players coming in, so much new anticipation all around with the team. And then us having so many of those key iconic moments here and there, like winning against Australia at home in 2001, the Eden Gardens match. So the team would sprinkle all these moments here and there, but by and large, we were super inconsistent. And that is where we land up in this NatWest series. And as you mentioned,
Yeah.
losing 9 consecutive finals in ODIs in a row.
Yeah.
But yeah, so much to look forward to in that particular series, in that particular match.
Yeah, some of those finals I remember really hurt. I remember we going to Zimbabwe, India, Zimbabwe, West Indies. I mean, come on, you win those series, you win all the group games, you reach the final, and you just can't beat West Indies. Uh, there were series between India, New Zealand, and Zimbabwe. I think that happened a little later than NatWest final, and we lost even that. Um, I think just before this series, we had this quadrangular series. I remember just because of Sunil Joshi picking 5 wickets for 6 runs and something. We won all the games, South Africa, Kenya, and Zimbabwe. We lost the final again. And of course, we will lose all Sharjah finals. Uh, and this quadrangular series actually happened just before the series, the NatWest one, because this was a full-fledged England tour. Just the tri-series involving Sri Lanka as well, and then the 4 test matches. Uh, I think this was also a time of experimentation with the combination, because in the quadrangular series just before this, we had Dravid keeping. When we went before that to the Zimbabwe one, you had likes of Dighe and Ratra being featured at different points of time in the last 1 year. So there's a lot of changes to it. Uh, we had discovered Yuvraj, of course, in the ICC Mini World Cup that I mentioned a bit earlier. You had Sehwag playing slowly, getting into the team as well, and now as an opener you are playing, and you now have Ganguly opening and Sachin. So a lot of interesting combination. We went into this tournament and we actually dominated the group stages. We were really dominant against Sri Lanka. We beat a couple of times England as well, and we reached the final quite comfortably, I would say. And we have a settled team at least within the tournament. So we had Sehwag and Ganguly opening. You had Dinesh Mongia batting at 3, Sachin at 4, Dravid at 5, and then you had Yuvraj and Kaif at 7. And why and how we were able to play 7 batsmen? It's because Dravid was keeping. That was the big experimentation John Wright and Ganguly were doing. And then we had two spinners, surprisingly, at Lords, but these were, let's say, placid conditions, and we went with Kumble and Bhaji because they were like really two good bowlers. And then we had, I think, Nehra and Zahir playing as the two pacers. Srinath was not part of it. Srinath was playing in the earlier tournament, but not this one. Uh, Nasir Hussain won the toss. Clear blue skies in London. Sun out there. I think was quite clear that he would want to bat. And Trescothick, like so many left-handed openers back in the day who
against
would just
India.
torment India against India. He was a lovely batter. We were discussing this off air as well. That such a lovely batter, dominated spin bowling. In the series that England had played in India, which finished 3-3. I was watching some highlights where Flintoff wrung the shirt out at Wankhede when they won by 5 runs. During that series, he did attack our spinners a lot. So Trescothick makes a big century. India picked up a couple of wickets, I remember, early on. But Nasir Hussain, who never makes a century in ODI, we dissed a lot him in the last episode that we were doing about the worst combination. He makes a century. I remember him making a celebration with the helmet pointing to back of his shirt that here I am, don't doubt me. They make a big score, 325. India had a big start. We'll discuss a bit more on this as well, but Ganguly was really good as opener and Sehwag was solid as well. India then lost a lot of wickets in the middle order. I shut down the TV. I remember when Tendulkar got out around 150 runs to do my homework because I thought match is dead. Came back after like 10 overs. I saw, okay, no new wickets have fallen and Yuvraj and Kaif are going well. And then it's all history. Yuvraj gave a lot of impetus, made 69 of 63. Kaif hung around. Bhaji played a cameo. And we just handled nerves better that day and somehow we got lucky. And then after 1983, same ground in the same place, there was a one big happy moment because we hadn't experienced that kind of happiness in our living memory by then as an Indian cricket fan. Of course, we had the India-Australia series and all that, but in ODI cricket, after Desert Storm, at least this was the biggest thing that was there. And we still look back at that with so much love and so much admiration. So yeah, a lot
Absolutely.
of things happening in that final.
Yeah, and just to add on, SS, it was such an uncharacteristic match, I remember. And now I was also following some highlights of that particular match. So, right from the very beginning of the match, Zahir Khan, when he got Nick Knight out, it was fairly early on in the English innings. It was off a full toss. Now, how uncharacteristic is it to get a frontline batter, an opening batter, out on a full toss? And then Nasir Hussain and
And you
Trescott.
don't generally try Yorkers to the opening batters as well because okay, he might be trying a Yorker and Zahir had a good Yorker and you miss it by a few inches. But again, you don't try it. So that was quite an uncharacteristic ploy itself.
Absolutely. In fact, he also got Flintoff out on a full toss later on in the innings. So, how often does it happen that you get such good batters out on full tosses? And then, of course, Nasser Hussain and Trescott stitching that massive partnership. I think almost 180 runs. From They took England from what I think around 60 something for one to 240, 227 ish. So it was almost a 160, 180 run partnership. And Nasser Hussain, of all batters, scoring a century in ODI cricket at almost run a ball. We spoke about him in the last episode of having a strike rate of something around 60s. And now here
Yeah.
he is in the final of a NatWest trophy, scoring 100 of almost run a ball. And then Trescott, of course, plays well against India all the time. And he played a brilliant innings.
And I
And
remember Flintoff playing a cameo as well at the end.
yeah, and then that is when Zahir again bowled a full toss and got him out. So
Hmm.
all those things happening in the first innings, then second innings, when you're chasing such a huge target, you generally get off to a nervous start. You don't have good starts. You try to hit a few shots, you miss something, and then you get out, and that puts the pressure back onto you. But in this particular case, we got off to a wonderful start with Ganguly. I remember carving Flint off through the offside. And then later on, Sehwag joined the party and was bashing Ronnie Rani all over the park. So that, of course, is also very uncharacteristic. One, that wasn't a time when ODI cricket you would chase down scores. Chasing was
Yeah.
the tougher thing to do in ODI cricket. And then when you have the two openers come in, bat it out with such good intent and also do it successfully. That is very uncharacteristic that I feel of that time. And then, of course, you have such a high when you start with the batting, and then you have the low of a batting collapse. India losing 5 wickets in 40 odd runs, losing Sehwag, Ganguly, Sachin, Dravid, Dinesh Mongia, again, like such highs and lows of the game. And then, of course, you have two youngsters coming in, one of whom would not even have been in the team had Dravid not been keeping the wickets. So,
Correct.
Kaif would not have been playing the match if Dravid wasn't keeping. And then to see Yuvraj and Kaif stitch a partnership of almost 120 runs, and then Kaif batting it out with the tail to take us through. I think so many things that happened
Unheard
in the
of.
match.
These things you wouldn't even expect. I mean, okay, Yuvraj and Kaif would do it at certain point. They say, okay, Yuvraj gets out. This is the time we will collapse. England wins by 60 runs. But even that doesn't happen. When Bhaji gets out, you would think, okay, now probably the bubbles go out. Flintoff will clean the tail. And he did try to. He picked up 2 wickets at the end in 1 over. But still we were able. So that was like a day to remember. Things just were not falling in the script that you would normally associate with Indian cricket and Indian chases.
Absolutely. And there were so many of those key individual moments, right? SS, which could have tilted the match on its head completely.
Yeah, correct. So there were a few at the very start as well. I think there was a shroud of maybe poor captaincy as well because Nasir Hussain had a broken thumb as well. So Chris
Mm.
Kautik was captaining, and maybe tactically against Tudor and Guff bowling, the fielding would have been a bit more canny as you would expect from Hussain. Uh, Dinesh Mongia getting off on down the leg side, okay, maybe Sehwag getting a few lucky boundaries here and there. Uh, Dravid was quite lucky as well. Yuvraj early on. But I think the bigger moment that happened was right at the very end because otherwise Yuvraj and Kaif played a chanceless partnership. It's one of those cases. They were very playing it quite clean to Giles, Irani, as well as Guff Tudor as well. At the very end, you had this situation when Flintoff comes around and picks up 2 wickets in 1 over. I remember Harbhajan as well as Kumble, and I was really angry when Kumble got out. Especially, I did not like his French cut beard and all. And I was like, "What are you trying to do, man?
And
Just be
also, it
clean
was a
cut. Be
terrible
the
shot.
terrible shot as well." Yeah, and I remember it was like 12 runs of 13 balls, and Zahir was truly a mug with the bat at those point of time. Okay, I remember him hitting 4 sixes of Olanga or something like that, but I didn't have much confidence in his batting, especially in those crucial time. And the crucial moment, first of all, was Caf getting that crucial thick edge boundary of Darren Guff, 49th over, last ball. So happy, only 2 runs to go. But the point was Zahir would be on strike. Even though Zahir had played Guff pretty well in that over, he'd made like singles, but Flintoff was on, like, he's really going for it. It's like, okay, Flintoff versus Zahir, I'm expecting a full length LBW to happen, but somehow he stuck it out.
And imagine Nehra coming in at that
Oh
point of
God,
time.
nah, we would have lost by 1 run for sure. And then the big moment happens, so to speak, when we talk about the sliding door in this match, or at least in that part of the Indian innings. Third ball, Zahir just trying to make sure he gets some amount of bat, doesn't get his legs in front of the stump, doesn't hit the stump, just tries to run. Caf was like really haggling around, and it's good speed as well, Caf. And the I think it was Collingwood who was trying to throw, and then he missed the stump. And then we just ran over in the overthrow and won the final jubilant scenes. But that was it. If that throw had been hit correctly and Caf would have gone on, Nehra coming on strike in to face Flintoff, I think nah, I'm not. I would be surprised if we would have won the game. Or probably tied it, but
Yeah.
probably not won. So there's so much around that. I feel.
This moment almost took me back to the 99 World Cup semi-finals where Klusner
Yeah,
and Donald had that famous or rather infamous run out. It could very well have gone down the same route, right? Had Cav been a bit short of his crease, had Collingwood been a bit more accurate, it would have been
yeah.
a very similar situation.
And if we take
But
one step back, would Caf be even playing in that match? Would be
absolutely, if Dravid
even
wasn't.
So I looked at the records as well because I was interested when did Dravid start keeping, and there were moments in 12 months preceding that he had kept here and there in the series, and India was trying to experiment. But you had Dighe and Ratra in the quadrangular series that happened just before. Ritinder Singh Sodhi, the the batting all-rounder was playing at 7 and India was going with a more classical approach, still thinking about Kapil Dev, Prabhakar, Robin Singh kind of a thing. Can we bring in an all-rounder at 7? And fair play to them. They were thinking on the right terms, but RTS wasn't giving much with the bat, much with the ball. And you felt, okay, this is an under 19 kid who has done pretty well at that level. He was, I think, the captain as well and had a good rapport with Yuvraj as well. And if you're going youth, go youth fully. And let's again go back to Dravid thing. If Dravid did not keep that right and Ganguly decision to making him essentially made us play with 7 batsmen and essentially made us play Kaif. And if that wouldn't have happened, we wouldn't be talking about all this, and that would have been a huge cataclysmic impact in the next 4 or 5 years on Indian cricket in general.
Absolutely. Another moment which I feel was extremely crucial was how India got off to a good start when chasing 325. Ganguly and Sehwag, we spoke about it. So many changes at the top of the order. Sehwag coming in, then does Ganguly open with him or does Sachin open? So many changes going on, and then Ganguly, Sehwag open for us in that match. Ganguly wasn't in the best of forms with the bat around that particular time, but he got us off to such an amazing start, blistering start. He was hitting Flintoff around. Then Sehwag joined the party, and so much could have gone wrong in that particular point of time. I remember when Alex Tudor was bowling to Ganguly, there was a point very early on in the innings, around 30-ish, for zero we were, and then Ganguly tried to hit him through the offside, got an inside edge, and got a four around fine leg. That ball could have very easily gone on to hit the stumps, and would have been one down at 30 something. And then with Dinesh Mongia coming in, a huge target in front of us, that would have increased the pressure. So
And
that I
if
feel is
you if you blindly show a scorecard who hasn't seen the match and just ask them, okay, India won this game and we had an opening partnership at 8 runs per over, and the two openers were Ganguly and Sehwag, and ask people to guess who was the aggressor, who made 70 odd runs. People would just 99 people will say it was Sehwag, but it was the reverse case. And Ganguly had that shot. I remember his struggle against short pitch bowling. It came later on in his career as well, but early on as well. And in ODI cricket, when the surface was not that quick, he would just give himself room, come down the track, and hit people over the top, especially when the field mates were up. And he was using that shot a lot. And I think, irrespective of the format of cricket, whenever you have a big chase, hardly you will see a situation where it's a number 4 and number 5 taking you from 30 for 3 to winning you the game. You need a decent partnership, and this was really good. I think 14 overs, they were 104 or around 110 was zero, and we had essentially made full utilization of the 15 over fielding restrictions then.
yeah, absolutely. And without making good use of the power play, it was almost impossible to win in such kind of situations in ODI cricket back in the day. So
Yeah.
there were so many of those micro moments that we already spoke of as like India getting off to a good start, Dravid keeping, which enabled us to play CAF. Then the final over run out possibilities,
Yeah.
edges going off for fours. So much that happened in a match that was so uncharacteristic. Uh, that makes us question, like, what if something went wrong down the line and India lost the match, right? So this is my question to you: how would India's ODI team have evolved had India lost that match?
Yeah, so many angles and perspectives to think about. Uh, I would think from a evolution of team perspective, when it comes to individuals, I think the individuals largely would have persisted and would have been trusted, because I think Ganguly, as we recognized under Wright as well, that there was a backer of youth and just giving them chances, letting them leave the fear that if they don't play well for 3, 4 games or a series, they will be chalked off. I mean, it's easier said than done. We have seen other examples where people had been chopped off, like experimentation with the wicketkeeper situation with the Rhythm Singh Sodhi or the all-round situation at 7. But I would feel Sehwag, Yuvraj, Harbhajan, Zahir, Nehra. I think these were like pretty solidified in the at least ODI setup. They had done performances for India before. They had come through that under 19 system as well, which had done pretty well for India. India won the World Cup as well. Those are pretty sure. But because we know about this number 7 problem, to play an all-rounder, to play a specialist wicketkeeper batsman or to play an extra batter in ODI cricket where you just want to beef up the batting. And because you had so many all-round options, spin all-round options in the team already, do you want that or not? The latest experiment in this was CAF. And I think if we didn't perform well and CAF had gotten out cheaply, we would have looked at the opening combination a bit as well. Is Sehwag Ganguly the best combination? But even if we say Sehwag Ganguly would have done what they did in the match, but later on we floundered and we would have been all out by 225, I think Caf's position and his immediate future, that as a number seven batter, I expect you runs and to be the finisher. If you're not doing that, then what's the point? I would rather play an all-rounder or play a specialist keeper and take the burden of Dravid. Dravid could improve his batting and focus on that skill. So I think that's the area which I feel we would have struggled with. We, anyways, as we discussed, we went deep into a couple of ICC events, but I think this would have just increased the trouble in the mind of the leadership as well as the team management and selectors on what's the next step. Should we keep experimenting? This is what I'm looking at. I think we would not have had a more settled environment leading into the 2003 ODI World Cup.
Absolutely. And I like the points that you make. The first one was around trying out new combinations. I feel, you can try out a lot of combinations. A team management can play around with different players, different players at different positions, different team combinations. But then the only way that they can do that is they deliver results. Like if you keep on losing, then eventually you won't get that additional rope, right? Like you get that because you win matches. And if we had lost this, probably Indian team management could have gone very, very defensive to the tried and tested formula so that they don't get the wrong end of the stick for trying out new things and failing with it. They'd rather be more defensive, try out things, or rather stick with the tried and tested method and then fail instead of trying out
Yeah.
something new and then failing. So I like the point that you make. It might have made the team management a bit more defensive. Then, of
What do you think
course,
about Ganguly's captaincy? We've been losing a lot of series finals and Ganguly and all. What do you think about that in the immediate future?
one thing which I definitely think about when I think about Ganguly's captaincy as an overlaying factor was the aggression that he brought to the field, right? That we see when India won the match, Ganguly taking off his shirt, similar to what Flintoff had done at Wankhede, because India before Ganguly were like the good boys of cricket. But under him, that was the first time when we saw that we were there to compete, and we were in the face of the opposition, whether it be Australia or England. Nobody could come and like just run us over. We were there to compete. If we were there to win, and we could do it. So that was one definite change in mindset that Ganguly brought in. But of course, when we look at stats, when we actually look at how much we won under his captaincy, then as we spoke about earlier in the episode, we lost 9 straight ODI finals, right? So losing the 10th one would definitely have tainted his legacy. Probably he would have been questioned as a captain leading into the World Cup. Probably the team management would have been forced to look at maybe Sachin, maybe Dravid, maybe someone else in the entire setup to lead Indian team into the ODI World Cup, because Indian team would have been pretty unsettled by then. And then again, the ability that Ganguly had to back youngsters, that would have diminished. I definitely feel that would have diminished. And we know for a fact, looking back at history, that Ganguly was able to identify so many of these future superstars for India, like Sehwag, Zahir, Nehra, Yuvraj, Kaif to some extent. Probably some of them might have missed out. More probability that Kaif would have missed out, but definitely Ganguly's ability to back new blood would have gone down.
And we would have missed the iconic shirt wave celebration as well. And who knows, maybe we would have never gotten it, or maybe Dhoni would have done it in 2017 20 World Cup. We would wait a long time for that. And the entire rivalry would have also been a bit decaffeinated, India and England in those times.
Absolutely. And SS, what do you think? Would India have been a dominant force in white ball cricket in 2000s had we lost this NatWest final?
Yeah, dominant is not a word. I would anyways agree with it because as we looked at the records, I think we look sometimes in the past with the rose tinted lenses, nostalgia, NatWest trophy. We did do very well in the Champions Trophy. We reached the final and shared the first place with, and I remember Kaif getting a good 100 in the first game against Zimbabwe. I think when we were really struggling 5 wickets down, and maybe NatWest did not happen, maybe he wouldn't be in the team, or if he was, he wouldn't have the confidence to take us, and India wouldn't be reaching the final. So it did well there. India did go on to do well in the World Cup in 2003 with pretty much the same combination. But other than that, in the bilaterals, we really struggled. We struggled in the uh, tri series that we played as well here and there. So we were not very consistent, and because of that nature, I wouldn't call them dominant. But yes, it gave a template and blueprint on how we will go about things. It set up the players, the confidence as they accumulated more experience. You could see them doing pretty well in ODI format. Under Chappell thing, we had this long streak of winning matches chasing, and this was the point where it all started. Uh, and when you had the right people coming in with the places like Dhoni and everything, ultimately, I would say winning a World Cup is like a 7 year, 10 year cycle where you get the experience and everything. And 2011 was maybe the culmination point of all that. And you could trace some of those fundamentals back to this one. So I would say in the immediate mid 2000s, yes, they would have struggled even more, but maybe with some delayed success coming to them later on in their careers, which anyways it did come. But I think some of the individual careers would have struggled a lot more than Indian team. I think Indian team was fairly inconsistent anyways. Maybe we would have struggled a bit in the 2003 ODI World Cup because we might not have trusted with the combination that we went to. That is my main thing. That in the ICC trophies, when the big pressure moment came, we may have flustered again because we flustered in that NatWest final.
Yeah, actually, even during the 2003 World Cup final, I remember Australia set us a target of 350, but somewhere inside my heart, I had the belief that we could do it, and that belief actually came from this moment when we chased down 325. And I also like the point that you make on this match, giving us a blueprint of how to chase. Plus, if I look at the late 2000s, India did set a precedence for the rest of the world to follow in how to chase matches, how to chase on
Correct.
targets, because in ODI cricket that was fairly rare before that. And although that was done more by Dhoni and Yuvraj duo, but I do feel that somewhere the seeds were planted around this time with
Yeah.
the backing that Ganguly had shown to all the youngsters and
And
Indian
they
team
were
chasing down.
Yeah, they were big changes. Don't get me wrong. There were big changes during Ganguly and Dravid era as well. I was just watching the documentary on India and Pakistan, the storyline on the greatest sporting rivalry on Netflix. And when we went to Pakistan in 2004, which was like a couple of years down the line, when we were 2-1 down, going into the fourth game at Lahore, we chased on 294, and was who? Dravid and Kaif chasing it down for us. So you need that reinforcement. You will not be chasing down each and every time because these are elite teams. If they weren't elite, you are 9 out of 10 times you are not going to. Yeah, it's going to be sometimes here and there, but more often than not, that gave the confidence. In 2005-6, we had that big streak of chases. So a lot of good things came out of this, actually. So, guys, now those were the big what ifs that we were covering. But it would be very nice for our listeners to just give a broad summary of what we think around this entire NatWest Trophy final fallout, as I would like to say, from both the match perspective and immediate Indian future and English future as well. We haven't touched a lot upon it. Maybe in the summary, AB, you could touch on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were looking at it that Indian team was going through a lot of turmoil when the decade started, a lot of transitions in the leadership, new players coming in, a lot of anticipation brewing, a lot of those key iconic moments the team kept giving to us fans every now and then, but by and large being super inconsistent. This was probably the first time where we won at a big stage after a very long time, like after the Coca-Cola Cup and all. This was the first time when we had such a wonderful win in the finals. And I do feel that had we not had this win, then it would have led to more fluctuations in how the team management thought about the combinations, about the players. Probably we would have tested out a new captain, a new leadership, probably changing in coaching. You never know how those things might play out. So definitely, if we had lost the match, then Indian team future would have been a bit more tumultuous. Maybe we wouldn't have been such a settled side in the 2003 World Cup. Going forward, as you said, SS, somewhere down the line, probably everything culminated in the win in 2011 World Cup. Maybe that might have been delayed. So I do feel that NatWest win that way was a very crucial moment in Indian ODI cricket history. Plus, we had some real superstars coming out of that single group of players. Regarding the English cricket, I feel that was a time when Indian and English sides were both at the same level, both were middling sides, and they had their own rivalry brewing up. With Flintoff taking off his shirt at Wankhede to Ganguly doing the same at Lords. I think one, that rivalry would have been a bit decaffeinated, as you put it rightly, SS. Plus, I also feel that it would have given English cricket that bit of impetus to go forward in the next set of tournaments and perform a bit better. It would have given them that much more confidence. Imagine someone like a Nasser Hussain, the captain of the team, scoring a century at the big stage and winning it for them versus scoring a century and despite that, the team losing. It is such a
Yeah,
different narrative. So I do feel the histories, or rather the future at that point of time for the two teams would have been a bit different. One team would have been imposed to a lot more fluctuations in the future. The other team would have been a bit more settled, and the captain would have been a bit more settled. They had a superstar in the making in Andrew Flintoff. I think they would have gone on to win more in ODI cricket. What
yeah.
about you, SS? What's
Completely
your
agree on a
summary?
lot of completely agree on a lot of India related points. I think a lot of success that came may not have come. Individual careers would have been definitely brandished the wrong way, and CAF would have been like a that number seven position itself. I feel was the big thing that we discussed on. I want to touch upon England as well over here in this kind of outtake that we are doing over here. That England did reach the Champions Trophy final in 2004 at home under Vaughan's captaincy. They became very consistent around in the Test arena, 2005 winning the Ashes. 2004 final, they lost to West Indies when West Indies has chased 60 or 70 runs and there were 2 wickets left to be taken. And it came back to haunt them. They should have won the NatWest final and they should have won that final. Maybe if the NatWest final went their way, we could have seen one win them a Champions Trophy, and that would have given them a lot of confidence and made them a top tier ODI team, which they had to wait for another 10 plus years to become one. In 2015, the Owen Morgan era, maybe they could have done in the Vaughan and Strauss era. They anyways had Flintoff as a big superstar. A couple of years down the line, they would also have likes of Ian Bell and Kevin Peterson as well, and James Anderson also coming in the flow. So these are the sliding door moment, and I feel that England also had that sliding door moment that they just missed out on a big win that could have catapulted them into the top ODI nations as well. So these are like the moments where the futures of two teams diverged, and it's very interesting that we touch on the England point as well. Okay, guys, that was it for today's episode. Looking back at India-England ODI rivalry, one of the big moments in that, and now we will can focus on today's match as well and this series, and hopefully India and England will play a Champions Trophy game in starting off very soon, and hopefully we'll do some content around that as well. So, looking forward to hearing your feedback. We are available on all podcasting platforms, and we will be soon back with a bonus episode, hot takes, and with a long form episode next weekend. Till then, bye bye.